The black flag of al-qaeda was this week raised over 2 Iraqi cities, which are now under the control of jihadists bent on creating a new Islamic nation. But the real bloodletting is yet to begin, warn experts, as the Iraqi army and tribal militias mobilize and prepare to counter-attack. RT's Guyana Chichikan reports.
They run on chaos. Emboldened by the fight in Syria, these al-Qaeda-linked militants overran parts of Iraq, including the city of Fallujah.
We have said earlier that the Syrian situation will actually go into Iraq, and this is what we were warning about.
Chaos in neighboring Syria deepened as the U.S. and its allies threatened the Syrian government, sending the signal to the rebels to fight on to the detriment of a political outcome. Islamist groups have now taken over the opposition movement there and have even chased the Western-backed leader of the Free Syrian Army out of the country.
It's a bee's nest. You either leave it alone, because if you kick it, they're going to come out and bite you. And that's what we did when we invaded Iraq in '03.
And it can bite not just somewhere far in a war zone, but here in the U.S. American intelligence and counterterrorism officials now say Islamic extremist groups in Syria with ties to al-Qaeda are recruiting and training Americans who have traveled there to get them to carry out attacks when they return home.
There are dozens of extremist Islamist forces that are operating both inside Syria and over the Syrian borders.
Iraq has been a breeding ground for extremists since the U.S. invasion. Now, residents of Fallujah and other parts of the country are bracing themselves for the Iraqi army's assault as it attempts to drive militants out of seized areas. The U.S. is supplying Hellfire missiles and other weapons to help the Iraqi government in the fight.
The last thing Fallujah needs is more missiles.
We heard the U.S. government say they decimated al-Qaeda's leadership, but the groups that continue their cause expand, and what they thrive on best is chaos. The U.S. brought chaos to Iraq, and in Syria, Washington's support for armed opposition has benefited extremists. In Washington, I'm Ganesh Chagan, RT.
The jihadist group now said to be in control of Fallujah and Ramadi is the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, also known as ISIS. It's seen as a formidable fighting force, and its militants are among the most radical cells in Syria. ISIS itself dates back to the early years of the Iraq War. It was formed in April of 2004 by Sunni insurgents and soon after pledged allegiance to bin Laden. 2 years later, it was rebranded as the Islamic State of Iraq. In 2013, its military successes against Assad gained its strong influence in Syria, which saw it add Levant to its name. And, of course, in the latest developments, the group has taken control of Fallujah and other parts of the Anbar province in Iraq and proclaimed an Islamic State. Now, more perspective now on the group and what it's aiming for in Iraq with Anders Kagor, a former Danish intelligence officer who served there. Good to have you with us this afternoon, sir. The capture of these cities, what does it tell us about how powerful al-Qaeda has grown?
Well, basically, I think it tells a lot more about how weak the Iraqi government and the Iraqi government forces are, because the fighting ability of these of the ISIS, for instance, is very strong but very contained to localized battles, whereas the Iraqi army really are supposed to be in control of the country, but it isn't. So I think it tells a lot more about the willingness of the ISIS to fight and the lack of credibility towards the Iraqi army.
The United States said it was equipping the Iraqi army to, against potential offenses like this. But if the United States couldn't eradicate al-Qaeda, what chances does the Iraqi people or the Iraqi army have?
Well, this battle isn't about equipment. Far from it. This battle is about stamina. And one thing the ISIS and the rebels has is stamina. They want to continue fighting. And the Iraqi army really hasn't got a chance to fight these militias to eradicate them. I think that this battle cannot be won on the battleground. It has to be solved by negotiations.
2 years ago, President Obama told the world that al-Qaeda was on the run. And now it would seem that al-Qaeda has more, I mean, does it have support in Iraq? You've been there. What are the people saying there? Are they sympathetic towards it? And why has al-Qaeda gained so much momentum after that the 2 years President Obama mentioned that to the world?
Well, in my opinion, al-Qaeda has never been on the run. It might have been downscaling due to pressure, but once this pressure is lifted, the organization is back in full force, and it uses these pauses to regain its strength. Prior to the invasion of Iraq, there weren't really any al-Qaeda in Iraq. There were a small group called the Ansar al-Islam, which were actually being fought. Saddam Hussein tried to eradicate it. But since we weren't able to find any weapons of mass destruction, a lot of media coverage was given to the al-Qaeda in Iraq, because they were one of the reasons why we originally went there. But al-Qaeda hasn't been on the run in Iraq, and the general population is not pro al-Qaeda, I would say, but they are certainly not pro the Iraqi army as well, or the Iraqi security forces. And this is due to the highly concentration of Shia militias within these armed forces. So much of the Sunni population and big parts of the Shia population who are not sympathetic to the militias do not feel any confidence to the Iraqi security forces. And therefore, due to this lack of credibility to the Iraqi security forces, the al-Qaeda is given some room to maneuver.
That's Anders Kaigo, a former Danish intelligence officer who's joining us there, giving us his perspective on what's happening in Iraq. Thank you.